There you go. All right, Vincent's got the bell, so your class is ready to come to order. I've been looking all for a couple of years about how to get this attention to the group. I thought a whistle, I don't know, a whistle's not too cool, but I saw this great bell at a local store, and I thought, well, this would be perfect to get everybody's attention. But the problem is, my wife Pat has been having me wear it around my neck, and it's been kind of distracting. I'm not getting used to it, I know. It's good for ADD, it really is. And it's good for mindfulness, because you always know where you are. But what you need to know is where the other people are. Well, I don't want to give it too long, because we have an amazing group of individuals that have been so willing to come out early on this January morning, and I never know when I'm scheduling these things in December, January, February, March, April, May, whatever, what the weather's going to be. But I really appreciate everybody coming this morning. I see lots of smiling faces, and we'll keep track of the ices. Hopefully we'll get out of here before all that gets going. But it's really a pleasure. I'm Rob Pasick. I think I know most of you. And I think they're coming to take me away here. But we are in about the 20th year of doing these LeadersConnect breakfasts. And I'm really honored today to have some extraordinary people. And this is the third or fourth year where we celebrated Martin Luther King's legacy and his birthday by having a special program. And we're going to have everybody give their perspectives on the impact of Martin Luther King on their lives. And then we're going to have a panel discussion and then open it up to all of you, and maybe have you have a chance to talk in your small groups. So we're going to get right into it, because we want to be sure to use the time effectively. I just want to point out a few people in the audience that are new to the room and new to the group. And one is Elliot Soloway. Elliot, can you stand up? Elliot's in the back. Elliot is one of the premier computer science pioneers in the world, and he teaches here at the university. And among his students have been Larry Page. Who are some of the others, Elliot?
Tony Fidel.
Tony Fidel. And
iPod.
He got his name on iPod. So, and Elliot is one of the most extraordinary teachers. He's won the Teacher of the Year award at the engineering school. And I had the pleasure of being in this class the other day, and I pitched an idea to these students for an app. He has an app contest kind of every year, and they're going to do an app based on my new book called A Journal for Self-Awareness. So I'm very excited about working with these young people about that. And that book, by the way, is out here. It's available. I'm doing a special today for $5. But I do ask, if you buy it for $5 or whatever price, please put a review on Amazon, because these days that's the way things are really sold. The more reviews, the more Amazon notices, the more people buy it, etc. So I'll start with a personal story before I introduce the panel. I first think I heard of Martin Luther King, I believe it was the summer of '63. I think it was the March on Washington. Right? Oh, move over, Roger. All right. Roger's the boss. He's the producer. And I was painting houses. I was working at a camp, and I was painting the cabins. And I was up on a ladder, and we had portable radios in those days, before the iPod. And there was no Tiger game on that day, so I'm listening to this speech. And I was so blown away by the power of that speech and the impact. I just stopped what I was doing, got off the ladder, listened, tried to gather a few other people around. And when I went back to school, I was a senior that year at Ferndale High School outside of Detroit. And we had a very tumultuous environment in the school where there were tensions between lots of different groups. So there were the greasers, which kind of, now we think of as blue collar, right? There were the blacks, all the Negroes at the time. There were the rich white kids that lived in the Pleasant Ridge, very upper class. There were a few Jewish kids, which I was one of. So I went back to school, and it was a very tumultuous fall. And we had a riot in the parking lot after a football game. And they canceled, decided to cancel the homecoming dance because it was dangerous to have another fight. And so thinking about Martin Luther King and nonviolence and the importance of dialogue and the importance of understanding, I put together a group which I call the Student Relations Council. And I invited people who I thought of as leaders, many of them were my acquaintances, to participate in a kind of a roundtable, if you will, about what's going on in the school, the problems that we were having, why we were having the problems. And that movement took a very powerful role in changing the culture and the environment. I don't think we used either of those words, culture or environment, at the time, but we changed it at Ferndale High School. And then, of course, on November 22nd of that year, one of the most tragic events ever in the history of the United States, the assassination of JFK. So it was a very tumultuous year, and Dr. King, of course, was very powerful. Fast forward to when I'm a senior in college 4 years later, and ready to graduate in April, and another terrible assassination where Martin Luther King was shot. So his legacy is very powerful in my life, and part of what we're going to do today is to discuss that in the lives of these individuals. So I'm going to try to get these titles right, but this is all friends of mine. I'm really happy to have you here. So Laurita Thomas is the Vice President for Human Resources at the whole University of Michigan. She's one of the preeminent people in human resources in the world. She presents all over the world in what she does. And she's a highly esteemed, wonderful leader, inspirational. And I've had the pleasure of coaching a few of her people who work under her. They're very inspired by her. Next to her is our Chief Learning Officer at the University of Michigan, the first president, the first Chief Learning Officer. I'm making you president already.
Non-academic.
You and but Sonya Jacobs has promoted coaching, training, development, particularly coaching as a vehicle at the university, and she's been at the medical center, and then was awarded this new opportunity to create this new position. So she's a wonderful person. Next to her is Karan, who is a university, like a third-year senior. I think a very fast-moving student through the university system. And I had the pleasure of having Karan in my class this past year. Of course, he does a little bit of football, so he has a challenge to manage all this. But in addition to all that, he started a couple of different nonprofits already, one in his hometown of Sarasota and one here in Michigan. So he's really here as an entrepreneur and a very inspirational young man. Alfreda, and Alfreda, I forgot your last name online. Rooks, I'm sorry. Alfreda Rooks is another wonderful person who is the head of community engagement or community education for the Michigan Medicine, which is now called. And I've had the pleasure of working with Alfreda, helping her develop this program, which is a great program, bringing U of M medical out of the community and out of just Ann Arbor and into the community. So she's a great liaison if any of you have ideas of ways to expand public health, really not just traditional health. And then last but not least is Claiborne Green. Claiborne is the head of academic education for the football program, correct? That's back. Yeah, so he has the job of making sure these guys get up, get to class, and he and I have worked together now for 3 years, and he's brought me some amazing students into my self-awareness class at the university. And he's a very inspirational leader. We had the 3 of these folks in my class speaking this year, and it was an amazing conversation. So I'm going to just let you each have a few minutes to talk about yourself and about your views about how Dr. King has affected your life. and then we'll open it up. So if you just pass this down, we'll just go right to the voters. So just pass it down, Laurita. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for the invitation, Rob. It's always important to listen to the questions that are there and have a moment to reflect on that. And so in reflecting on the question of how did MLK influence my life, I had a recent circumstance where I was nominated to be interviewed by a family member for the StoryCorps organization. Are you all familiar with StoryCorps?
Yes.
So they try to capture our culture and the stories of the people that live. And when they accept your interview, it goes into the National Library of Congress. And so it was really quite impactful. And my son, who became my interviewer, is here in Michigan, and I was really pleased about that. So the question he asked me was, where did you get your drive, and what was it like growing up? And then I said in the 60s, because I was in high school in the 60s. And it caused me to think about that in a way that I had not, because this is my son asking me this question. And when I thought about it, and what's in the interview, if you want to pull it up, is that we believed we could do anything. Even in the midst of all of the racism and sexism and everything that was out there, there was something about being a teenager in that period of time where we were infused with confidence. We were taught to challenge. We were taught to ask questions. We were taught effective ways to do it. We were taught how to organize. People would come to our community centers and our churches, and we learned how to march arm in arm so that we could protect each other in the marching. We learned how to do our demands for our sit-ins. And one of those that was with the original Black Action Movement on campus, where we closed the LS&A building. At that time, it was the administration building, and we put locks on it, and President Fleming came in and sat on the floor with us, and that, because we were taught to challenge to make the world a better place. We were taught that we would have to sacrifice our own lives to do that. But it was okay, because we were not going to only make a difference for ourselves and our family. We were going to make a difference for society. And it was going to be better for people who didn't even understand that the world would be better if we could change in this direction. So I'm grateful for what we now call change management. Back then, it was activism. It was intellectual thinking. It was a confidence and a self-awareness that even though you may have to sacrifice your life, even though you may have to go to jail, we need you because you're going to make a difference not only for your generation, but for the children to come. And I think that is so important today with the activism that we need to demonstrate, because we've had some regression, unfortunately, in our society. And we've got new issues and new inclusion and new humanness that we need to address. And so I'm going to call on that belief. My drive to make a difference comes from the belief that we can. And so when I interact with people, it's to build that confidence that if you believe it, you can achieve it.
Thank you. If anybody knows, it's pretty difficult to follow Laurita. I'm going to do the best that I can, and I'm going to piggyback. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to piggyback on something she said with respect to being a change agent, and so I reflected on that question too, with respect to how Dr. King influenced my career or my leadership style, and I'm thinking about his transformational leadership style. And I've had the great fortune of researching and teaching people about that style. And one thing that strikes me is that he wasn't comfortable with the status quo. And I've been very fortunate to be in a position with respect to what I do in leadership development to be a change agent and to challenge the status quo. Thinking about how are we educating all individuals across the university and beyond to be change agents, to impact all of those that are around them. And a couple of things that I think about is, how did he go about doing that? And it was his relationship-centered style and approach. And I really try to embody that in what I do. Who am I engaging along this journey around leadership development or diversity, equity, and inclusion? How, as a leader, am I helping them to see the vision? As Dr. King said, he's seen, the mountaintop. How am I helping people see that vision and bringing them along? Helping people to understand what their value and contribution is, because we all bring something to this world and need an opportunity to give. But what are we doing to engage people as a leader so they have belief in that movement, whatever that movement is, and feel connected? And so one of the things that I reflected on in his transformational leadership style, again, not only the relationship-centered, but being a trusted partner. And that is very, very important, particularly if you don't have, let's say, a title, but you need to be able to influence. And you think about the number of people that he was able to influence, and it was because he showed up, he knew his values, and helping people to see that what you do matters. And I've always tried to really lead based upon the values. I was fortunate to have a father who worked on that great march on Detroit. Many people don't know that march, the March on Washington, it was tested basically in Detroit in June of '63. And so my father was a part of organizing that particular event. So not only reading about Dr. King, but also I was bred, I believe, to be a person who challenged the status quo, was very relationship-centered, wanted to bring people along and help people see how they could work to change the world. And so I'm very fortunate to have had that experience, and I work every day really to be that transformational leader.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Karan, again, like Rob said, and those are definitely two hard spirits to follow, but I'm going to try my best. As a young man growing up, I'm lucky to be the recipient of the things that my fellow colleagues are trying to reciprocate out to the world, and I'm able to learn off of the things that they're trying to incorporate and learn off of historical figures such as MLK that stand before me. And one of the biggest things that I've learned so far in my life is that you have to rise above the odds, no matter what it is. And I'm able to incorporate that each and every day throughout my life. As most of you may know, I play football, and that's a very difficult thing to accomplish and a very difficult endeavor. Vincent knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of odds that you face, especially when you're trying to get to a University of Michigan type of institution. It's very difficult as a young black man. I grew up in Florida along with Vincent. And it's difficult. You don't see many minorities being able to rise above those odds. So when I think about that going throughout my life, I try and incorporate that with the people I encounter, especially the young men and women that are my age, which is part of the reason I started nonprofits. I really try and incorporate my findings and really try and branch those on to different individuals that see me as a leader and show them the pathway that I took and how they can either take that same pathway or find differences between us and each other and incorporate that in their life to get where they want to be in life. So that's definitely something that I've learned so far in my life, is that you definitely have to rise above the odds no matter what it is, and I'm still learning that each and every day.
So good morning. Can everybody hold it close enough?
Yeah.
So my family and I am originally from Birmingham, Alabama. And so my family was really in the thick of things in the movement. Matter of fact, my aunt was in the Children's March. Because many people don't know that the march was televised, that showed the fire hoses and the police dogs being stuck on people. That was actually a children's march because the parents were too afraid to come and march. And so they talked to the high school students and they decided to be there that day. I also had family members who, when the bus boycotts were going on, provided transportation for people. So for me, being from the South, having that legacy of being there, it drives me to be the best person that I can be, but also to build those relationships, to be that kind of leader that is patient, that is listening, that is trying to bring people along. But when I reflect on that, I think that the work that I do today and how I was led into that work is really part of that legacy from Dr. King. My work at the University of Michigan Health System, Michigan Medicine, centers around really and truly those social determinants of health, poverty, that impacts a person's health care, because we do recognize and understand that where you live does indeed influence and impact your longevity as far as how long you will live. And so being mindful of that and going into communities and having conversations, but not just making it about the urban areas, because most people believe that that's where all of the disparities exist, but going into those rural communities as well and saying, you know, what is it that you need to be healthy? This is what our data says, but what is it that you need? And engaging one-on-one with folks to have those kind of conversations to get a better understanding. Because really and truly, if we are going to really make impactful change, we have to make impactful change around people's life, health, and well-being. And we have to give people the tools to be able to engage with our healthcare system around what they need. So when we talk about things like bias, we have to understand that there's a learning on both sides. From the patient side that talks about how you can be engaged and that power dynamic that happens. And one of my goals in life is to change the paradigm and have us stop talking about patients being compliant, but to talk about how we can both be engaged in this partnership for health. And so from the physician side, getting the physician to recognize that though this may be a standard treatment, that there are other things that influences a person's ability to buy that medication. If I have to make a choice between food and rent and the medicine, more than likely because I need to have those other two things to be stable in my life, I'm going to make that choice. And so it's giving people that knowledge so that when they do come together, that there can be a bridge of communication, there can be a relationship, and there can be a partnership. Because once we do that, then I believe that we will truly be able to change the world and also change how we view each other.
Yeah, I think we're all so fast to follow, but when I think of MLK, I think of...
Everybody, you're sort of petering out as you go down the line.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of talk loud.
All right.
That's the range.
Okay, so when I think of MLK, I think of the word that comes to mind is opportunity. For he sacrificed, and for a lot of us of color and a lot of people to have certain opportunities. So I grew up in Georgia, a place called Watkinsville, Georgia. So our annual field trip was actually going to the Martin Luther King Memorial and seeing all those things. We're a student athlete at Morehouse College, where that's where he went to school. Part of his fraternity, Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, where he talks about transcending lives and order to serve. How you transcend lives is in order to serve people. So in my role as director of football academics at the university, when I think of our guys and think of the work that I do, I think of the people that have made sacrifices to give a lot of these young men the opportunity to do the things that they do. For example, a lot of our guys are first generations. A lot of guys have an opportunity to change their families' lives, not just because of football, but because of the academics and the education that they're able to receive. I tell the guys all the time, you need to take advantage of opportunity of a lifetime, and opportunity of a lifetime and a lifetime of the opportunity. And so they got 4 years. And what they do in these next 4 years will a lot of times determine their next 40 years. And so knowing that, you feel a big obligation to make sure that you are kind of pushing these young men to do the things that they need to do in order to carry on their family traditions of success, or starting a new dynamic and changing the dynamic for the family forever. And so knowing people like MLK, and his service style and being kind of a servant leader. That's what I kind of strive to do every day, to serve these guys, to hopefully to help them to transcend their lives, so ultimately they can transcend others. They have a tough job. A lot of people don't think they realize what they endure every day. And I tell them, being a student athlete, especially at a place like the University of Michigan, it's probably the toughest thing that they will ever do. You know, I think of things like Karan right here. Karan balanced 18 credit hours this year, led the team in rushing, and finished the term with over a 3.0 GPA. On top of that, getting up in the morning for workout. If he doesn't miss his workout, if he misses his workout, he has to run, has to go to class. If he misses class, he has to run. You know, and then going to practice, and then after that, come to the study table. And if he misses study hall, he has to run again. You know, and so it's a lot difficult than the normal.
Go to massage.
Yeah. So it's a difficult lifestyle, you know, a lot of people tend to know. But what I encourage these guys, balancing their lives in difficult years and still persevering, is going to prepare them for everything. I mean, Karan has to go to workouts after this, you know, so it's being a part of that and knowing that this is being a part of something that's bigger than me. Opportunities at MOK, the people on this panel before me have worked hard to put me in a position to, or even allow me to have the opportunity to work with these young men in such a way. You kind of feel like an obligation to carry that on. If we don't, then his legacy dies, you know, and so, and being able to install that and try to install that with our young men and allow them to do it themselves. And so that's kind of how he has influenced me and how we go about our day. That's my job.
Hey, do you have a question for any of the panelists here in terms of what you've heard? And we can start opening up and just discuss it with each other and ask questions.
Okay. Well, I guess one of my questions, I mean, you grew up in a different time when you faced a lot of adversity, that, man, the sacrifices and the things that y'all dealt with has paved the way for people like myself, you know, Karan, and future people who look like me, in order to be in positions of influence that I don't think we typically would have had in the past. I mean, and I just wonder, how did you kind of deal with it? What kept you going in order to get to where y'all are today? That's good.
The most senior person on the panel.
By the way, I'm just going to ask Hans in the back. If you guys can't hear, just raise your hand. Hans is tall, so you can see that arm coming up.
I think these are important questions because we need to learn from each other, and I hope you get to comment about some of these questions as well, because it's important that leaders connect and that we learn from each other. I appreciate the question, but one of the ways to address the question is, I just finished reading The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. A couple I had not. That book is about what people did to achieve freedom. What the Quakers did to create the opportunity for safety and their sacrifice of life when they were caught, helping slaves leave the South to achieve freedom. It's the personal story of 3 people and what challenges they had to address for that dream of freedom that drove them to sacrifice enormously to be hidden in a room in an attic that they could barely turn around in for 4 months, because if they showed up, the owner of that home would be killed. When I think about worldwide, our current issues of human trafficking, of the things that are going on to repress people, I look to the strength of the giants whose shoulders I stand on and say, how can I dare not work hard in this lifelong journey, given what my forefathers did to make sure I could have this opportunity? I too am first generation, but a couple of decades before your experience. But in the total context of what we can do and what we can learn and what's possible, you've got to just keep working. It is a lifelong journey. And we owe it to our forefathers, and we owe it to our grandchildren to challenge so that people can thrive and create opportunity for the kind of life that we all want for our families and for people that we interact with and for people that we care about around the world. We have a lot of work to do.
I'd like to comment on that too, the question around how do you deal with adversity. Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Imagine you're Aretha and this is
Oh wow, that's even tougher. Okay. I think about how I've gone about dealing with adversity. So in my generation, things began to change, and I'm very thankful to the work of those before me, but I have always sought to get mentorship and to work with or take advantage of the experiences of other people. And some of you may know I believe in having what I call a diversified portfolio of mentors. I need people who are different than me, who think differently, who have come from different walks of life to help me along my journey, looking for guidance and looking for wisdom, and knowing that there was somebody there that I could lean on in order to support me. And that is extremely important. And there are many of those individuals in the room today. And we have to be open. I have to be open to that feedback and or seek that feedback from those individuals that are in my circle. And always making sure that I have that diverse perspective in what I do and how I do it, and I'm forever grateful for that. So I would always, suggest broadening our perspective, and I think if you look at how Dr. King organized marches and those individuals that were with him, there were people from everywhere that wanted to be on that journey, and he sought their opinions and their advice in order to make change.
So as I said, I'm from Alabama, and I think that
we got Alabama and Georgia here.
So I think that growing up like that, when adversity came, there was an expectation that you would be educated. There was an expectation that you would then reach back and help someone else. And so not long ago I was mentoring someone and they said, I have a problem when I go into a room and there are other people there, and I started to question myself. So I watched them come into a room. How do you do that when you come into that room and it's like you have that presence? And I said, well, number one, I never walk into a room by myself. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, because I know where I came from. I know that both my grandmothers were domestics. I know that I have an aunt who has been a domestic for many, many years. I know the discrimination that my family experienced. I know what it was like for us moving into a neighborhood in Detroit as one of the first Black families and having a dog sick on me. And so when I go into those spaces and I have to do, then it's not me, it's all of those other people who help to give me that courage, to keep me mindful and to keep that drive and that passion going that says I am here for a purpose and a reason. And so I can't waste this opportunity to not be able to, number one, either create a relationship, create an opportunity, what I call a teachable moment for someone, so that they will learn how to engage with other people who may look like me or somebody else, or give them pause for thought. And so the important piece to remember is that what you do reflects on me. What Sonya does reflects on me. And my team that I work with at work, and especially our students in the summer, they always hear me say, don't bring shame to the family name. Which basically means when you go out into the world, remember who your people are, where you come from. And do that and live that. And that's the important piece.
Hey, I'd like to turn the question back to you, and you're at a, turn the question back to maybe you and Karan and talk about, as, when you grow up in the 90s or 80s, something like that. Karan's growing up in Hawks. This is a terrible word, Hawks. I'm glad I didn't grow up in Hawks. But just, we think of it better. And, but when I was watching Michigan football, in 1954, I think it was the first time I watched a football game, I think there were 2 African Americans on the Michigan football team. And there were nobody on the Alabama or Georgia teams. So could you guys talk about what you faced? Because people see you and they think, okay, you were successful, it was easy. But what were the parts that you had to call on your best self and fight that discrimination and keep going?
Can you guys hear me? Sorry. As I said before, the biggest thing for me has been to rise above all the different odds. And that also ties into being uncomfortable. And being a young black man, you often find yourself in uncomfortable situations. And for me, that's been made to defeat stereotypes. And that's why I came to the University of Michigan with purpose. I wanted to graduate in 3 years. I met Clay my freshman year, and I told him that from the start, I want to be done in 3 years. Each and every day, I try and find a purpose of life and a purpose of that day to fulfill. And really is to do things differently, do things that maybe individuals don't think about on a regular basis. So if it is graduating in 3 years as an athlete, or starting 2 nonprofits, or taking 18 credits. When I first said 18 credits, Clay looked at me like I was crazy. I did it. I got it done. And that's something I tend to think about a lot, because as the individuals beside me said numerous times and times again, that there's individuals who fought for this opportunity. And this opportunity doesn't come around every single day, especially where I'm from. I believe at my high school, I'm the second individual to play at the University of Michigan. The other one was David Boss, and he's a legend at the university. So I'm actually the first African-American male from my school to play at the University of Michigan. That's something I take pride in. And I think I have a duty for myself and for my siblings and anyone else who looks up to me to make sure that I capitalize this opportunity and take full advantage and utilize it to the most of my advantage. So that's something I think about, that's something I keep with me, and that's something that keeps me going to defeat those odds.
Can y'all hear me? Is that okay?
You want to follow that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to speak on what Alfreda said, I think, one thing my father, before he passed, always taught me. He said, when I leave this house, don't bring shame to the family name. He said, don't do anything to embarrass our name. And with that came with other things too. Education was always kind of pushed in my family, and so I kind of realized that's not the case for everybody. So I was given, even though we didn't grow up the richest, we didn't grow up in anything, I was privileged enough to be exposed to education, exposed to certain things that not everybody had the opportunity to. So with that being the case, I feel like, in my role, in my life, and when I played football at Morehouse, a lot of guys, didn't make it to the league, didn't make it even through school. And so I felt like it was kind of crazy that a lot of guys weren't kind of taking advantage of the particular opportunity, and I felt, I guess what pushes me is just that knowing that I've had certain privileges of education and certain things, it's an obligation for me to help as many people as I can give that back to their families, start things anew. And so and I love the guys, but sometimes they can work your nerves because it's a long day, and I understand, you got to balance a lot, you know what I'm saying? And I'm the last guy you want to hear say, man, you got to get this homework done. You got to do this and that. But what pushes me is knowing that I can't enable them not to quit, and I got to keep pushing because the bigger picture is they're going to be husbands one day. They're going to be fathers one day. You know what I'm saying? And so you want to install in them the notion that, and I think by doing that, we help make this world a better place by preparing these young men to kind of go out in the world and kind of change it bit by bit. You know, so when you do get annoyed or you do get frustrated a little bit, you just got to remember, they may not appreciate it now, but a lot of times when they get older, they'll understand and they're kind of glad somebody's kind of pushing them. So that's where I kind of get my drive from, and just knowing that each young man I get a chance to influence or somewhat influence, that ultimately that hopefully makes the world a better place in the long run. You know, because these guys are going to do amazing things once they leave Michigan, whether it's playing football or being citizens in the world. And that's the cool thing.
I want to give you guys a chance to talk too and share your stories. So one of the things we do is we kick it back for about 5 minutes. And what I'd like you to do in this 5 minutes is find somebody, maybe you don't know, you can get up and move around if you're sitting next to somebody familiar, and just say, what's a good question I'd like to ask this group? So you mentioned the power of questions, a couple of you brought that up. So think about some really good questions that could stimulate thinking here. Take about 5 minutes, we'll let you talk, and then we'll take some of the questions from the audience. Before we do that, I just want to talk about community. I want to thank the community who's made this possible. So Mike Cole, Mike, can you stand up? And Mike is with the Bank of Ann Arbor. And the Bank of Ann Arbor has been instrumental in community action and making a difference in this community, whether it's through financial terms or through music. Mike is, I had a chance to see Mike do the harmonica. He's pretty darn good on that. And but he brought a lot of things to the culture of Ann Arbor. There's other people. Chris Singh, you stand up. Chris is with the Rayle group, which is also financial advisors, and they've been doing this in the community and helping people manage their money. I mean, you know, the power of compound savings. If you just put a little bit of weight around every year now, by the time you just stop it, in 20 years you'll be a rich man. You know, the power of that money growing. Roger Rayle, who's telecasting this, and it will be available to show probably next week. All of these LeadersConnect events have been on video. So this is a good opportunity to go back to your workplace and maybe have a lunch and learn and sit down and listen, have your people listen to this and have a good discussion at work. And also, of course, Zingerman, who's been amazing in terms of providing. And just a couple of shout outs. Sean Duval, can you stand up? Sean is one of the most successful entrepreneurs in town with only golden limo, and not only the most successful entrepreneur, but the most successful African American entrepreneur. By the way, did you know Mr. Barfield? Yeah. Let's pass this back and maybe you can give a little tribute to him because this gentleman just died and it was quite a stroke. But come on up, Sean. If you will, just come up and you can say what. Also, a couple other people. Where's David Cantor? He's out in the audience there. David was CEO of the Pfizer here for many, many years, and now is running the North Campus building out there, research building. And David was instrumental also in making this a great community. Patricia Garcia, where's Patricia? She's still here? Way in the back. Okay, Patricia, stand up. Patricia's the publisher of the Ann Arbor Observer, and we can all applaud her. And there's hundreds of more. I'll call on Nicole too. Nicole is Sonya's sister. So Nicole is this name we with Nicole. Okay, T-Bank. All right. So Sean, can you say a little bit about Mr. I'm gonna say the name right.
So I'm terrible at tributes. I just would say that
This is like a
I didn't know John Barfield well. I just really loved him and a few conversations that I had with him. But the one thing that I knew about him was that He was, as Sonya was saying, huge on mentorship. He understood that he started with nothing, he took nothing and turned it into a multi-million-dollar company. And the one thing that one thing that he was always insistent on is taking the phone call, answering those people that reached out to him, and any opportunity that he had to help, he was willing to put forth that help. He was a big supporter at Parkridge, and you can see a lot of that legacy today. You can see that legacy in his family and how much he cares for this community. So it's sad to see that his wife passed away early last year, and then he followed several months later. But it's a beautiful family, a beautiful legacy for Ypsilanti and Washington County, and really for all the people that he touched.
No, I try to stay away from being too political, but you can't ignore politics because we're in a very dangerous time right now in this country, maybe the most dangerous time I've ever experienced, where authoritarianism is on the march. And I just wanted to introduce Gretchen. If you just stand up, Gretchen. Gretchen is running for Congress against Tim Walberg, and let me just say he's one of the most conservative legislators, congressmen in the Congress right now. So support who you want, but I really love Gretchen. She was former mayor of Saline, and I think is struggling against a big machine to fight that, a lot of national money for you. So everything we can do to support whomever, because I'm not waiting for the 25th Amendment or impeachment or any of those things. I don't think they're going to happen, but we do have the right to vote this year actually. So it's very important. So with that, and please excuse me if you're on the other side of the debate, you're welcome to have the mic as well. But I would like you just to now make a turn to 2-3 people at a time, take 5 minutes and talk about how your own life has been impacted by the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, and see if you can come up with a question or a comment for the panel.
My name is Tom Wright, and I would like to thank the committee here, all our speakers. I lived in the South, and I came from here, and I'm happy that I came from here. Because what I learned was you have to stand up against injustice. And when I lived in Memphis, Birmingham, Nashville, and Mississippi, people would say things, and I said, that's unacceptable. And we all have to do that. And when I would call on African American business owners, they said, you're not from here. And I said, that's correct. And I said, how do you know? They said, you treat us with dignity and respect. And I said, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And what I learned up here from all of you makes me proud that I stood up to all those people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions we have? Yes, way in the back. Stand up and just shout out your name and your question.
Hi, my name is Trina. I grew up in Michigan, and my question is to ask the panel if they could expand a little bit on what you were taught at home. And I'll give you an example. Because I believe that parents at home of children of color are teaching them differently than the masses, and the masses may not understand that. And I'll just give you a quick example. I always taught my son, when you go to a store, make sure you get a receipt and a bag. So when you walk out that store, they know you purchased that item. So if you could just expand on that a little bit about your upbringing.
Okay, I'm trying to remember which one. first story I want to reflect on, I go back to work ethics. Okay, I remember growing up as a child, not having the luxury of sleeping in on the weekends, because my father would always say, "If I'm up, you're up." And so I have always lived by that, and it really instilled in me the need to be productive. He was an entrepreneur, and so I was always able to watch him and how he interacted with people and treating people with respect. He was very, very clear on how we carried ourselves in the world, and always ensuring that we would be very productive. So I think if I'm up, you're up.
And families were much larger, I think, when I was growing up. And so family wasn't just mom and dad. It was uncles and aunts and neighbors. And I can remember my Uncle Sam saying, bringing all the first cousin girls together. You are Butler girls. And this is what we expect of Butler girls. And the rules were really quite clear that we were living up to that family name of how we were expected to carry ourselves and go forward. I will say, raising two young black men, and I'm a Roadhouse mom, none of us have mentioned that Dr. King came out of the church. So I need to claim that as the first foundation. Whatever your spirituality is, that is the foundation that allowed strength, perseverance, and determination to drive all of us. A quick story, I was introducing the Martin Luther King speaker on campus, and we went quickly back to 1963. My father was an entrepreneur. He started businesses, and then he wanted to move and start something new. So at the time, we were living in Southern California, and he had an auto parts business and a Texaco gas station. In '63, he loaded all of us, my siblings, into the car to go across the South to visit my mother's family in Orlando. We stopped at a Texaco in Alabama, and his 4 girls, my siblings and I, needed to go to the bathroom, and we couldn't go to the bathroom indoors. The owners pointed to the field out there, and I looked at my father's face when that person said that to him. I never want another man to experience what my father experienced in that moment. And so that, it too, is part of the drive. He was powerless at that point. He could hold his head up high. He could withdraw the pumping of the gas so that we didn't pay that owner. And we eat as far as we could go to get some more gas to preserve whatever ounce of dignity was in that situation. That's part of the drive. So sharing the stories that make a difference. And because you asked, and I had 2 young black men, there's an author about what people experience. Dr. Joanza Kanjufu has written a whole series of books about the conspiracy to destroy black boys and what they experienced growing up. We read all of those. We discussed them in the family. We tried to learn what many of my parents had not experienced in time. And then one more thing to build on the mentoring that Sonya mentioned. When I started work up here, my mother said to me, be careful, don't share anything personal. White people will take what they learn about you and stab you in the back. And so I was very private. I came to work, did my job, tried to do it with excellence because we were also taught you have to be twice as good to get half as far. And we believe that. And then the leader of that section said, Laurita, people think you're better than everybody because you don't interact with anybody. That was so far from who I defined myself as. So even with my mother's guidance, it took mentoring, because my mother had never worked in an environment like this. It took mentoring to build on her foundation, but to move beyond that. So I think I better hush because I could do this for a long time.
way, Karan had to leave or he had to run, so.
So answer question, a few things come to mind. The golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated, was always kind of brought up in my family. And also my father always told me, said, growing up in the South, hard work will transcend all color barriers and all barriers. So our judgment, so he's always like, man, every man, every woman respects somebody that works hard and it's somebody who executes. So that's one thing that kind of always sticks to me now, just, no matter my skin color, no matter my race, no matter what, another man or woman, if they see my work ethic and understand that I execute and get things done, there'll always be a place for you to continue to strive and get better. So, and to piggyback on that too, the faith, being from the South, the church is a lot of times very important to the family. A lot of times you don't realize what they're doing until, when they drag you into church or dragging you somewhere. But a lot of times it's just kind of putting you around an environment where people, even though, church, everybody has issues, but like people are striving to do better. And so being around good people, just like this, I think of this event, and then you hear all the people in the room, iron kind of sharpens iron. And one thing Father always also said too, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You'll be a direct reflection of kind of like the 5 most people you spend the most time with. So just trying to be around good people and says, kind of help. So you can always help and give back. So those are kind of the things that's been installed in me.
We're going to take one more. So Sylvia?
My name is Sylvia Van Meerden. I have a coaching business for young people. And I also work for a summer camp that had a lot of counselors who have sickle cell. And I have done a lot of mentoring of them to try to launch them into their careers, because I think so many of them deserve to have prestigious careers. And one of the big blocks that they come up against a lot is the legitimate anger that they feel about the ongoing discrimination, in combination with the idea that a lot of people have that there's not as much discrimination as there actually is. And I think that's a legitimate roadblock because of how it sort of creates some degree of imposter syndrome and some degree of that moment, that breathtaking moment where a discriminatory moment happens but nobody notices. How do you react? How do you bring up your social skills to just do well and be excellent in the moment anyways? And I haven't experienced as many of those moments, and so when I'm coaching them about what can we do about this, I'm also a therapist, so I'm dealing with it from a therapy mentality. But what I want to know is, what is something else I can tell them? What's a way that I can help them use that anger and work it into who they're going to be in a way that makes sense? I don't think it can go away, but how can it be woven into the fabric of their life in a way that isn't debilitating, isn't such a burdensome secret, or I don't know. I get stuck there too. So I'm looking for advice.
Well, I'll start since they gave me the mic. It's interesting that you say that, because I've been having a lot of conversations with folks around that same issue. And I think that the one thing that, being subjected to discrimination myself, is that I've had to tell myself, okay, is this a reflection on me, or is this a reflection on the person? And so I always remember, I can't carry anybody's luggage but my own. And so when those situations happen, I don't take that and hold that in. I look at that person and I really try to create what I call that teachable moment, okay? To give them another perspective from which to experience. Because the first place that people always think that you're going to go to is that anger and that you're going to be violent. But when you don't give that back to somebody, they don't have anything to feed off of. And so then you can begin to have a conversation. Now, will that change that person? Probably not, because this has been who they are for many, many years. But it does give them hopefully pause the next time to think about, okay, what am I saying to this person and why am I saying it? Because I'm not going to own anything that you're projecting, and that needs to be something that you need to reflect on. And so remind them that whatever they experience is not a reflection of who they are and the character of their personhood, but of that person's own inability to be a productive, caring, and humane person.
That's very good.
Thank you.
I wanted to poke a little hole in the Ann Arbor sanctimonious attitudes that we have that doesn't exist here. And a couple stories come to mind that I heard. One was from Karan. You were part of this where the professor said, what was it to him? Like, you could tell the story. Then I'm going to have Vince, you tell the story too about when you were trying to raise money for your nonprofit and weren't recognized. So you want to just share that very briefly?
Yeah, it actually happened Karan's freshman year. Karan's one of our better students, worked extremely hard. He was, put to a class, first year seminar, and the professor on the first day pretty much said, I don't like working with athletes. I don't like working with football players. There's no way you can pass my class. And so, and Karan came to me and was like, Clay, this is what the professor said. I think we need to get out the class. But I was like, no, Karan. We push through things, we persevere, we're going to prove them wrong, and all those particular things. And so, Karan took advantage of tutoring, did everything that the professor, told him to do, was in class all the time. You never know what leads to, to failure in a course or whatnot, but that ended up being pretty much Karan's only class that he failed throughout his whole career at the University of Michigan. And Karan went above and beyond, I feel, in that course to do what he needed to do. But at the same time, it kind of.
Do you feel that was a code word for I don't like African Americans in my class and minorities, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Maybe a combination of both. I would say so, but I would say a combination of both. You get that more often than not at times at the university.
Vince, can you come up for a second? Some of you may know Vince Smith, who's been here many of these times. Come on over here, Vince. Vince, what I'd like you to talk about is you described a story to me that always has stuck with me about how you have a nonprofit, and what's it called, so I can promote it here?
Team Gardens.
Team Gardens. And
Athletes and Gardens.
Athletes and Gardens. And after your football career, you decided to dedicate yourself to that nonprofit world. And you were out, remember the situation, you were out raising money for at the tailgates? Can you describe what happened there?
So one incident happened when I'm trying to, it's Ann Arbor, tailgates, and a lot of fun's going around. So I'm physically out here, like myself is going around, hey, can you give a t-shirt? So I had this one guy, I came up, I just had my hashtag eating Michigan shorts, paid no mind of it, regular, casual. He was like, I said, I'm Vincent Smith, this is my flight, I started a nonprofit. But he was like, totally didn't know who I was, like totally didn't know like I scored touchdowns or nothing, but he's all excited in football, but couldn't put a face like on a picture. I'm helmet, but down, but just during that experience and at that moment right there, like how can I get this person at that moment to be able to recognize me?
Did he tell you to get away? Is that what you guys have?
He was like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of here. But at that moment, I was able to reflect. And knowing about just trying to connect him and seeing why he couldn't reflect me, because he's out here on a big Michigan Friday. I love football. I love it with a passion. and it's exciting, but I also just started Team Gardens. It gave me a vehicle to go to different communities, interact with different kids.
So what happened when he found out who you were?
He didn't find out. He's still out there, right?
I heard you say before, which I thought was pretty interesting, that somebody said, hey, you know who that is? That's Vince Smith. And then everybody wanted to take selfies with you and all that.
Yeah, so right after that, like a little bit, like, I'll say 5 yards down. 5 yards down, he saw it, he was like, oh my gosh. But those experiences like that what molded me and just drive my focus in a whole different perspective. And that's how I put all that energy and things, what I'm doing with the gardens. And hashtag even teamgardens.com if you all want to check it out on the process and just the pictures and just the camaraderie of it and the understanding, the most important.
Thank you very much. Because of our great sponsorship, we don't charge for this event, but we do ask you to contribute to a nonprofit every month, and Vince's would be a great one. He's trying to bring entrepreneurship, but also healthy food, teaching people to grow their own healthy food in the urban environments. So he's doing a wonderful endeavor, and if you could make a contribution to his nonprofit, that would be a very remarkable way to honor the Martin Luther King's legacy. So I'm going to pass it back down to Laurita. Laurita, we're going to wrap up a little early, so I'll let you have the final comments if you want, because I get a text from my wife that it's freezing rain out there. We don't want people to be stuck out here, so we're going to let you get going a little bit early. But we can pass that down. I guess we could each have just a closing remark, but take a minute.
Each have a closing remark would be good. Yeah.
Once you started, you can pass.
Well, I just want to tell you thank you for having me out here and having the opportunity to speak on MLK, talk about the young man, the job that I do, and I don't know, just to be a part of a community of great people, to see that sacrifices y'all have made, to kind of like when I look at this room, I kind of look at kind of like I think from my faith come back, to be the salt of the earth, because salt preserves, and so kind of like being, and trying to carry that on about what y'all have already done, and it's, even though I'm up here, I'm so inspired just to see all of these faces, the things that y'all are doing. It's kind of a really cool thing to be a part of. I kind of wish I could bring all the guys out here. Kind of
bring them back
to see things like this, because this is it's very impactful.
Show them the video. We also play. I know that we've talked about some of the pains that the players have about getting internships, and is there? If people want to connect with you about maybe employing some of these young men and mentoring them, is there a way that they can connect with you on that? What do you need?
Well, that would be great. They actually do get credit now for if they can obtain an internship in the summertime. So if there are any internships that are flexible but meaningful, or if people wouldn't mind having these guys to help give them experience, but be in mind that they do have obligations to class and also to weight training as well. So if there's some really cool, flexible internship type opportunities, and we'll definitely make sure that they're there and hold them accountable.
You got a few other Karans that can contribute to it.
Exactly. So that's always up to grab. So if there's any information or anything that y'all would love to have some of these young men kind of get some cool experiences while they're here, that would be amazing.
So thank you so very much for having us here this morning, Rob, and for putting together this talk around MLK's legacy of leadership. I would just like to just remind everybody that what he really stood for and what he believed in, and one of my favorite quotes is, "Be the change. Nothing will change in this world unless we change." And for Maya Angelou, we can't necessarily change what those experiences are, but we can change how we respond to those things. And so choose to respond in a positive way around whatever that issue may be. I always say that I can say anything I need to say because it all comes from a place of love. And so just to remember that, and we each have an opportunity to teach someone something every day.
Thanks again, Rob, and thanks to all of you for coming to hear our stories. We're not afraid of the stories that we're told, and I believe us sharing our stories will help to really increase the dialogue and maybe make change in the world. And whatever you can do, please reach back and bring somebody else up and along as you go about your journey. So thank you.
I wanted to respond to your question about the anger and then how do you move forward. From my experience, to build on what Alfreda just said, our family it's not the stimulus, it's the response. So we had to acknowledge the anger. We were allowed to get angry, to scream and holler, to go punch a bag, not hurting anybody else. but to find a way to deal with the anger, acknowledge it, either write or rechannel it into some other activity, or go do a physical workout. Don't let that anger eat you up, so acknowledge it within your circle of supporters or champions or family, whatever you need. But there's always more than one way to respond. And so think through what options are available to you in that response. And have that bag of tools, if you will, in your heart and your mind, so that when you're confronted with all of the isms, you're prepared to be who you are and maybe make it a teachable moment. The challenge I would ask each of you to accept is we need to have a lot of difficult conversations. We do need to share stories, but these conversations are tough. Review your own skills at facilitating in your home difficult conversations. Review your own skills and figure out what you need to learn to be able to hear a perspective very different from your own. Review your own skills and how you lead people to a positive outcome that's going to improve their lives and our lives. This is hard work, and most of us still have more to learn about how to confront, how to do it effectively, how to make a difference in someone's life because you listen and you have a tough conversation. So look at whatever opportunities you have for your own growth with your colleagues, because we have many difficult conversations we need to have in Ann Arbor, in Michigan, in our country. And I know we can do it, but we have to get skilled at it.
I am deeply appreciative of your participation today and your stories. I think, if anything, we've learned this morning the power of stories to teach. And when we hear a story, we need to respect it, but we also need to call out if there's something in it that is not appropriate. And that may mean the loss of a friendship, but it may mean also a deepening of a friendship. So I want to give them a thank you. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you very much. We'll see you back here February 2nd. I have a great speaker, a young woman named Ida Albakani, and she's going to be talking about passion and purpose. And I'm looking for people who have made significant career changes that might want to participate in that. So that's what this is going to be about. We have Dr. Mark Schlissel coming up in March. And then we have a panel on surviving cancer in April. And Dean DeRue from University of Michigan Business School will be here in April. So we got a good program set up.
He's so proud.